It's Ramsey Dewey. I was about to go to bed, but I was looking through some YouTube comments and I got a bunch of questions saying, Ramsey, what do you think about the whole Jake Paul boxing match with Tyron Woodley? And let me stop you right there because I don't care. I didn't watch it. Didn't even watch highlights of it. I don't care. I don't think you should care either. Tyron Woodley cared because the man was getting paid. And a fighter is not above getting paid. I mean, man, look at Tyron's body of work, things he has done for money. The dude appeared in a Bollywood movie. I kid you not, that's a real thing. Very strange movie, Sultan. Have you ever seen that one? Well, I heard from a friend of mine from India that there was a really good wrestling movie out there. I believe it's called Dengal or something like that. Very inspiring film based on a true story about a man who trained his daughters to wrestle, something like that. And all I could remember was Indian wrestling movie. So I ended up on a plane. I had some time to kill on the plane. There were in-flight movies, and one of them was a movie about wrestling made in India. And I thought, oh, this must be the film that my Indian friend was telling me all about, that she was so excited about. So I'll give it a watch. So I start watching Sultan. It's a strange movie, man. It's a strange movie. So it's a story about this poor young man who chases kites for a living. They have like kite races, or not kite races, like kite battles, where they try to cut the other kites down and the kite falls and this dude chases after the kites and, I don't know, makes some money, makes little scraps of money that way to eke by. And somewhere along the lines, he sees this young woman who happens to be a wrestler, a very high-level wrestler, and he thinks she's the most beautiful woman ever. He falls instantly in love with her, but she doesn't want to have anything to do with him because he can't wrestle. And so he decides, I am going to become the world's greatest wrestler to win the love of this woman. So this man, whose name is Sultan, goes out and learns how to wrestle, masters the art of wrestling within like 3 months, something ridiculous like that. Wins like every major wrestling competition in India, and then goes on within a tiny amount of time to become like the greatest wrestler in the entire world. Within just a few months or something like that. I'm not exaggerating, just tiny increments of time, this guy goes on to become the world's greatest MMA fighter. And the movie climaxes with a fight between Sultan and Tyron Woodley. Yes, the Tyron Woodley. They didn't even give him a character name in the movie. It's just Tyron Woodley. And Sultan has this epic fight with Tyron and ends up winning, of course. So, what does that have to do with Jake Paul? Nothing, because I don't care. But you probably want me to speak, because some of you care. So you want me to say words about this whole event. So Jake Paul has outboxed who? Did he fight some other YouTube guy? I don't remember. Maybe that was his brother. And then he fought Ben Askren, the wrestler turned MMA fighter, without too many boxing chops under his belt. And then he outpointed Tyron Woodley, an MMA fighter who can throw a punch or two, but not an actual boxer. And people are asking, what's next for Jake Paul? What's next? Well, I don't care what's next, but let's speculate for a moment. I heard he put out a hit list of sorts, guys he wants to fight. Conor McGregor, for example, and when interviewed,
Hey, who do you think, Jake Paul?
Hello, how are you?
The boxing match. Who do you got?
I don't really care. Is that Arnold's car, to be honest?
Yeah,
Look at
looks
that.
beautiful, huh?
What is that?
good job, Conor McGregor. We finally see eye to eye on something. But I don't think the public is going to be happy with Jake Paul fighting a list of MMA fighters. I think what they want to see now is this young man boxing an actual boxer. But here's the problem with that, and here's why Jake Paul won't do it. He's never going to box an actual boxer. Because the public doesn't know any actual boxers besides the greatest of the great, the world champions. They only know the big names in boxing. MMA's a little different because there are some household names that are not world champions. There's some well-known fighters out there. Some charismatic guys. Some guys with some clout. Guys you've heard of. Guys your mom has probably heard of. Who aren't world champions in the sport of mixed martial arts. It's funny how that happens. But boxing, what boxers do you know if you're not a boxing fan? You probably heard some names like Mike Tyson. You've heard Muhammad Ali. Why? Because these guys were very famous boxing champions way back when. How about now? Who is there right now? Floyd Mayweather. You probably heard about him, even though he's retired. Who else? Who are the big names? Lomachenko? Triple G? Canelo Alvarez? Guillermo Rigondeaux? Casual fans don't even know Rigondeaux, man. They don't know. Jake Paul could go out there, fight Rigondeaux, and let's just speculate. Let's just visit the neighborhood of make-believe for a minute. It's a fun place to visit, but please don't live there. And let's just speculate and imagine for a minute that Jake Paul beats Guillermo Rigondeaux. That would be a tremendous accomplishment. It's not going to happen. It will never happen in a million years. But if he did, the casual fans would have no idea who this man is. They wouldn't realize why that would be a big deal. Even though he is a phenomenal boxer. Because the casuals don't know who the boxers are. As far as the casuals are concerned, Jake Paul is the boxer right now. And that says to me there's something wrong with boxing. Something wrong with the sport, the way it is managed. Those companies with the 3 letters in their name that regulate boxing, that put on the big shows. The way they market their fighters. And there's something right with the way the UFC markets their fighters. To the point where they don't have to be one of the greatest champions of all time for you to know their names. And I've heard that Jake Paul is telling these fighters, I'm going to give you the biggest payday of your life, and maybe he is. Great. Cool. Props for that. Because fighting is a poor man's sport, always has been. I got a comment that ruffled my feathers just a few minutes ago. This guy was looking at an old video. One of the only videos of an entire fight. It's a kickboxing match. K1 Rules kickboxing match. Happened back in 2010 or 2011 in China. Shandong province, I believe it was. And it's one of the few full fights that I actually have on video up on my YouTube channel. There are very, very few of my fights that I ever actually watched, that I ever actually saw a video of. Let alone have a video of. I didn't own a camera in 2011. Why? Because fighting's a poor man's sport. And I wasn't affluent enough to own a camera. And I didn't have a entourage of people willing to film my exploits back then. But somebody in the audience had a camera. I suppose they would call them a potato nowadays. Very low resolution, like 180 pixels, something like that. And filmed the fight, gave me the footage, and yeah. So it's exciting to hear when a fighter goes from A ham and egger, if you will. A guy fighting for a plate of food, to put food on the table. To being able to act in a Bollywood film, and make a decent paycheck scrapping with Jake Paul. But that dude is never going to fight a real boxer. He's never going to box an actual boxer. And that's your fault, friends. It's not the WBC's fault. It's not the WBA's fault. I kind of alluded to the fact that it was because of poor marketing, but it's your fault. It's your fault because you don't care about boxing. You care about spectacle. You care about stories. You want to know what's up with the YouTube kid fighting the UFC fighter. Because it sounds compelling to you. But you don't care about boxing. Please stop pretending that you do. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.